Hi, I'm Nick from Enemy, and we're here with Jack and Blaine from Mystery Jets.
Hey man.
How's it going?
Really well, thanks.
So, we sit here shortly before the release of A Billion Heartbeats.
How long?
About a month now, is it?
It is about a month.
It is
yeah.
about a month, right. How are you feeling? Like the nerves of about to get it out into the world?
Excited.
Yeah.
I think because it took quite a long time to do.
Yeah.
As most Mystery Jets records do.
Yeah.
But how do you feel about it?
I think particularly the last two, which we produced ourselves, has been a kind of all-engrossing process. Right from the beginning to the end, we've been a part of every part of mixing the record, producing, engineering. So when it's finally done and out, it feels both like a weight off our shoulders and something to celebrate for us.
And most recently, we've heard Screwdriver. And I guess for a lot of people, it'd be quite a bit of a change. I mean, it's heavier for one, but lyrically, it kind of sees you doing things you've never done before. With that track, tackling the alt-right and kind of the state of the world. I guess that's something like Mystery Jets perhaps haven't done, or it's made obvious before. What's the decision to to go and do that?
I think there's always a fear as an artist if you engage in what's going on in the world, and I suppose current affairs, for want of a better word. It brings a certain there's a danger of alienating parts of your audience. Yeah. I think it's something that we've always been mindful about, and I think approaching this record, it's very much a collection of songs about what's going on in the outside world. We've been very mindful about not being too on the nose, or it's definitely not preachy. I think
it's a reportage.
Yeah.
It's it's like yourself, a journalistic response to things that are going on around you. Well, particularly in this country.
So there's the lyric, hate masquerading as pride, so you got God on your side. In terms of the all-right and the stuff you've perhaps seen, how does that kind of fit in to the song?
Well, Screwdriver was directly inspired by a far-right protest that I went to around the beginning of last year, and one of the things that I found most shocking about it is the way that Christian iconography is used in a sort of patriotic sense. And along the front line of the march, there were these big white crosses, these very kind of ominous white crosses. It felt like a complete kind of recontextualization of Christian imagery, I suppose, and it felt like these were being used as weapons to fight for something that actually had nothing to do with Christian values. And I'm not religious myself, but it felt inherently blasphemous and wrong. So that was one of the things that was most shocking. But actually the song, the kind of the lyric which unlocked a lot of the content of the song was, an enemy is only what you fight them with. And that was something that I saw written on a toilet wall.
Oh, wow.
It was just some toilet graffiti I saw somewhere. And I made a note of it, not really knowing what it was for, what purpose it would serve. But when the music appeared, it came from a jam that Jack and I were having.
Yeah, about 4 or 5 years ago. We often, have these kind of instrumental jams, and we all really kind of closetly rock music, It
actually came when we were making Curve, the last record.
Yeah, it did.
But it didn't have any words, and that line sort of came back to me, and I thought it was around the time that it felt like it was national kind of throw a milkshake at a Nazi week.
Yeah.
Which has been quite a long week. And I suppose I was thinking about that, and I thought, obviously, there's something satirical about throwing a milkshake. It's not weaponized. It's not like hitting someone over the head.
It's slapstick, isn't it?
It's slapstick, but still, there's something about it which I felt needed to be questioned. And I suppose I started thinking about, well, is that how you tackle intolerance? Is that how you tackle hate? Because it feels like we're more polarized than ever. It feels like we're living in a time where we need to remember what togetherness feels like. We need to redefine empathy and I think
community.
And I think music has a power to do that, unlike any other art form. I certainly feel that. I think music can somehow soothe our fears, and it whereas politics divides us, I think music reminds us of what we have in common, and that's very much the message of Screwdriver.
And just sonically, if Curve was perhaps Mystery Jets going a little bit cosmic, a little bit proggy in parts, What's like the sound on this record?
It's a lot more, I'd say, direct than Curve was. Curve was all about establishing textures and these things that we kind of used to call ghosts, which are kind of these, you know, these ambient textures that we'd write music over the top of. But this album, we kind of got rid of amplifiers and plugged straight into mixing desks, and we wanted everything to feel like it was punching you in the face. And
particularly the guitars, they're right up against
yeah.
Your eardrums.
Yeah.
And we, yeah, exactly, and tried to find other ways of creating textures which weren't necessarily, creating ambience, sorry, which wasn't necessarily amplification.
And when I was just reading about the production of this record, I realised that there's this great Mystery Jets tradition of recording in unusual places. So I've got here, you had a boat shed before.
Yeah, that was our first record.
You had a button factory.
That was our last album.
Yeah. And now you've got a tram shed, is that right?
That's right.
And how did that come about? How did you kind of chance upon this track?
Well, around the time of finishing Curve of the Earth, we got an eviction notice from the local council because our landlord had been a naughty boy and hadn't been paying all his bills.
The whole time we were there, and longer, I think.
I don't think he'd paid his electricity bill for like 20 years.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and the bailiffs thought we were him, so they kind of turned up and tried to take our guitars.
Oh, that's not good.
No, a couple of times.
And I was away at the time, but Jack and Will from the band had to basically gut the studio in 24 hours.
Oh my God.
So all our you know, our mixing desk, all our mics, all our guitars, everything was put in storage, and we'd kind of resigned ourselves to the fact that we probably wouldn't have a studio in London again, rent prices being what they are. And then I actually became a property guardian, so I started living in empty buildings because it felt like a way of, it feels like, particularly in cities like New York, London, artists are being pushed out to the fringes. I mean, I suppose that's what gentrification is.
Yeah.
And artists feel that first in a lot of cases. And I felt, well, actually this record is very much about the spirit of protest, and it's about what's going on a kind of, I suppose, on a political stage, and that is an environment which is very associated with the centre of everything, like being in the middle of a city. And so I realised I needed to find a way to be at the middle of the city, and living in empty buildings just struck me as the only way to do that. And so I started living in a building. It was right on the edge of Trafalgar Square. It was actually on the Strand.
Yeah.
And so every Saturday morning I'd walk out my front door and there would be a protest coming past. And I started joining the protests really as a means of education and trying to get close to what the messages were. And it would, you know, depending on what week it would be Black Lives Matter, it would be help refugees, environmental protests as well, climate change. And that ended up providing kind of the springboard for the messages in a lot of the songs.
So, you know, in terms of just like going back, I guess like last year was 10 years since 21 come out, and like I guess a lot of those bands that are around of like at that time, like Maccabees and the rest of, they've kind of like fallen by the wayside, like a lot of them split up, but Mystery Jets, you know, you're still going. I mean, like, what's kind of the secret to like your like longevity, do you think?
Well, I haven't been in the band for that long,
No.
but from coming in at a later point, Henry, Blake's dad, who is very much so the band leader. I mean, without him, we'd be all at each other's throats all the time. And it's true, really, isn't it? I mean, we're not like we don't get on, but I mean...
He's an amazing glue, and I think he's a conduit, particularly in our creative process, because we all write, and Henry is someone that sort of walks between our worlds and helps us find a commonality between, I suppose, our songs and our experiences.
And each other.
And he's very integral to that creative process. We just feel excited about making music. I think if we felt that our mission was complete, I don't think we'd feel any shame about hanging up our glad rags and, you know, walking off stage. But I think
we're still excited about playing together.
Yeah.
I mean, like, if anything could go on, and it gets harder as you get older, I think, as well, to keep playing music.
Yeah, sure.
But I think we're getting better still, and there's still some more stuff to say and play.
And just finally, 1 billion heartbeats. If you could describe it in one word, what would that word be?
Bombastic.
But thanks so much for speaking to us, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Wicked.